And IPs across the board, they're very smart, very intelligent. They have knowledge on a wide range of topics. So the more you focus on your high risk issues, it will likely start to tackle some of the smaller things that you plan on doing just through the process itself.
Infection stops where information starts. Welcome to the Transmission Control Podcast, where knowledge is your strongest defense. Broadcasting from the front lines of healthcare, we dive into the strategies, science, and stories shaping infection prevention today. Each episode, we connect you with experts on real-world insights to help you stop the spread of healthcare-associated infections, protect patients, and strengthen your practices as an infection prevention and public health expert. When the right information reaches the right people, lives are saved.
Hello and welcome to the Transmission Control Podcast. My name is Garrett Hollenbeek. I'm joined today by Jill Holdsworth and a very exciting guest, Aaron Woodall. And we're going to talk with Aaron today about maybe the most frightening thing outside of germs that we face, and that is executive leadership. We'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsors.
Brought to you from the studios of Healthcare HQ, let's get into it. This is Transmission Control.
Hello and welcome to the Transmission Control Podcast. My name is Garrett Hollenbeek, Editor-in-Chief of Transmission Control. And as we know, infection prevention is a global and always moving target. So today, if you hear airport noises, it's because I'm in an airport. So we are lucky to be joined today by Jill Holdsworth. Jill, how are you doing today?
Hey, Garrett, doing great. And I'm sure you're on the move going somewhere important. So glad that you can make us from wherever you are and happy to be here joining you today.
Thanks. Well, thank you. I'm in Chicago right now, and it's the warmest I've ever been in Chicago, which is not saying much, but here we are. So today we are jumping into a really exciting topic, which is presenting the right information to leadership. And on this season 1, everything is focused on the new IP orientation. And I know for myself, one of the most kind of terrifying things was presenting to your first executive leadership meeting and having the right information, not sounding like you don't know what you're talking about, and not saying something that was going to get you or the IP program in trouble. Our guest for today is Aaron Woodall. Aaron, we're excited to have you today. How are you doing?
Great. I am ecstatic to be here and talk with everybody.
Yeah, we are too. And Aaron, why don't you introduce yourself? We get to see a lot of your great content on LinkedIn and you driving the conversation forward for IP, but let's get to know you a little bit.
All right. My name is Aaron Woodall. I am currently the Chief of Infection Prevention and Control for the VA down in VISN 8. That stands for Veteran Integrated Service Network number 8. I oversee the Tampa VA facility as well as oversight of many others throughout our area. I've been in IP getting close to 20 years. It's always been in federal service, so the DoD primarily oversees in Europe, Africa, and East Asia, as well as here in the United States with the VA.
So we've got you as a leader in IP over a number of facilities talking about leadership in IP. We found the right person to talk today. So Aaron, getting into this topic, one of the things that I think new IPs struggle with is how to incorporate data and data-driven storytelling into their day-to-day work. So can you shed a little bit of light on how data can tell stories for IP?
So when you think of data, you really have to think of it like as if you're an artist and you're painting a portrait. So you want to have some sort of idea of your end goal. If you just have a whole bunch of numbers or you just have a whole bunch of paint, it's going to be very, very difficult to figure out which direction you're going to go. You'll probably sit there staring at it until you can't think anymore, or the numbers look like letters and paint looks like nothing. So one of the main things to do is figure out where you want to be. So once you're able to figure out your end goal, then you can start to structure what you're going to do. You can come up with your outline, you can come up with your plan, and most of all, understanding the data that you are going to use. Without understanding it and having a plan, you are going to flounder completely in any direction that you go.
Aaron, I love that analogy, and it kind of made me think about all the different kinds of meetings that IPs go to, and how we have to adjust, based on the audience. And I think one of the hardest things that I've had to do is to present the IP clinical data to our non-clinical executive leaders. And so, using your analogy, how do you repaint your picture to that type of audience?
So one of the main things to do whenever you are looking at a conversation that involves people who have no clinical background, who are at the top of a healthcare facility, you have to figure out the so what portion. So you have to tie your data into like an organizational area and show that how that impact is going to benefit the facility. So you really want to make it about the facility and its mission, its vision, and its values. When you take the data and you are moving forward and you are saying, hey, we need to focus on this. This is a CODI issue, and they're looking at you like you're an alien from outer space. You want to make sure that you can break that down and show them in terms what it means for your facility. How is it going to impact them on a financial level, on a respect level, on a character level, integrity? So many different things that the C-suite is looking at. You really want to see how you can take your data and move forward with it along with the strategic plan of the facility. That's how you link that into people who do not have a clinical background.
I like that so much, that concept of overcoming the so what factor. Because I know IP, we're always looking for risk, and I know sometimes it can seem to folks outside of the IP universe that we're finding germs and kind of boogeymen in every corner. Everything's a big deal. So, Aaron, how do we avoid making everything seem like a big deal and, in a sense, picking the right data points to present to leadership?
The big thing here with this is when you point at everything and you say that that's the boogeyman, that's the boogeyman, that's the boogeyman, and everything's the boogeyman, that means nothing is the boogeyman. Nobody is going to pay attention to it because you are just pointing out all the issues. So you have to come up with a plan, and generally for IPs, it's a risk assessment. So you generate the risk and you say, okay, this is my highest risk. This is going to be my priority. This is a low risk. We'll focus on this later. And IPs across the board, they're very smart, very intelligent. They have knowledge on a wide range of topics. So the more you focus on your high risk issues, it will likely start to tackle some of the smaller things that you plan on doing just through the process itself.
I like that a lot. So it sounds like it's a mix of what are the low-hanging fruits, what are the big things that are going to take a long time and a lot of strategic effort that we need to tackle, and then is there space in there to collect data on the good things too, victories and good things that staff is doing?
Absolutely. Without looking at the good data and talking about the good things and hunting for the good stuff, you're always going to be seen as a negative group and showing negative impact. So when you're looking at infection control in a positive manner, You are helping everybody out. You are the one who is being looked at for the answers on how to solve problems, not just the one who's finding problems and seemingly, and this is what a lot of people will look at infection control as, oh, they're just the police. They're like the hand hygiene police. They want to point out all the problems. But in reality, we have a different scope. We do have to look at everything, but without pointing out good things, it can be problematic.
Aaron, I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about infection control committee presentations. I know we all have to have them, and I think this will be a relevant discussion for any level of IP, brand new IP leaders, because it's so important that we have the right information that goes there, but it's so hard to get people to be engaged. You have leaders from clinical, non-clinical, you have higher up leaders, but how do you suggest to the IPs listening to have the right mix of information without overloading people with data, but also trying to get people engaged and not just kind of sitting there thinking, oh, well, I was told I had to be at this meeting, but I have no idea why I'm here.
I totally understand that. I have experienced that in the past, and I'll admit I've been a part of meetings and committees where I feel like that. And the way that I get around it is I try to engage with whoever's running the meeting and try to find what my purpose can be inside of it. So as leaders in a facility, that should be the vision that you always have. Like, what is your purpose? How can you help the facility out? How can you help the group out? When you have leaders that focus that way, it is always going to be in a better spot. But for IPs who are running an infection control committee, one of the big things is connections, being personable. You have to start to develop those relationships with people. If you are just sending an email and saying, hey, the next infection control meeting is on Tuesday at 9:00, here's the invite, you're not going to generate any passion from anybody else for it. They're going to say, okay, this is just another check the box that I got to do, and there's not going to be interest. So creating the relationships is number one for me. But the next thing is having a little bit of everything in your committee. Now, I'm not saying that you want to make your committee like 4 hours long, which we all know any IP could do that. But when you're focusing on just data and you're just focusing on that alone, if you have groups like your environmental care services, your housekeeping, your facilities management, administration, they're not going to be interested in that because it's not their world. You have to be able to tie it to it. One of the things I like to do is have them present some things as well and get them involved in infection control projects. So, for example, in the VA, we call them EMS, who do all of the cleaning and disinfecting of the facility. So they'll do ATP testing and they bring that data to the group and show their improvements. Our facilities management can do the same thing with looking at a lot of the rooms that are on negative pressure. Are they keeping it? Are they maintaining it? Where are they at with construction projects? Can they touch on those? So when you start to involve everybody else and you're not so just focused on HAI data, you start to develop your infection control world within your facility.
I'm really glad you called that out because I think new IPs, especially in any level of IP, the temptation is to say, I have to present myself as an authority. I have 60 minutes to do that. And all of that time needs to be wall-to-wall data. I've wondered, and Jill and Aaron, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Are we as IPs so eager to be right that we skip over collaboration sometimes and we kind of give everybody the roadmap instead of asking like, hey, where do you want to go in the car today?
Yeah, I think it can be easy to do. It can be easy to try and tell people what the right answers are because we always think we have them. Because, like wash your hands. But I think that as IPs, we inherently are always collaborators too. So we're always trying to find new ways to collaborate. And I love what Aaron said about making sure that you find that connection. And there's ways to connect in everything that we do in IP, even something as simple as your IPC meetings. And I think that's such a good point. And I don't know how the rest of the IP world feels about this, but we got so used to doing every meeting virtually, and considering going back to in-person meetings or hybrid meetings, I think is something that is important at this stage in the game, because virtual meetings are so impersonal, and going back to where you're seeing people face to face, you're sitting with them in the same room. What we have experienced here is you're getting so much rich discussion while people are in the room, because you're looking at each other and you're feeding off each other's energy. And it's kind of like we forgot what that was like. And it's been so refreshing to have some personal connections and collaboration in the room when you go back to doing some of these meetings in person. And I don't know, Aaron, if you guys have experienced anything like that, but for so long we forgot what that was like.
Absolutely. That was probably one of the biggest challenges, is having meetings all virtual. You do lose that connection. And yes, you do, you keep up with those relationships through emails and Teams messages or Skype messages, whatever the facility uses, and through virtual meetings. But the problem is it's totally different. This is why we go visit people. We visit family. If that wasn't a big deal, then there would be no need. So you cannot create good, long-standing relationships if you are not going to engage people in person. It's such a big thing with infection control that you're there in person. You're showing your face. You are showing that you are a collaborator, that you are there to support. When you don't do that, you do lose that personal touch, and you kind of do turn into a cold, frigid department that nobody wants to work with.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And as IPs, I think that it's even more important to have that personal touch that you've been mentioning, because sometimes we do have to go and say, we need to do something different. We need to work on this process because it's non-compliant. And if you can build the relationship first, those situations come along so much easier, because you already have that relationship built. You have the trust. And so you can just go up to somebody and say, hey, can you help me with this? This just isn't compliant. It isn't right. Or we need to do this better. And they don't bat an eye to say, sure, let's work on it. But if you don't have that relationship first, then that's when the pushback starts to happen, and we have those struggles. So I love this discussion about relationships.
I agree. One of the things that I like to highlight with the relationship that I have with our facilities management, there was a building at one point that had some issues, and I asked the chief of facilities, cut a hole in this wall, please. Let's look inside this wall. Without batting an eye, grabbed the phone, called some people. Next thing you know, 5 minutes later, there's holes being cut into the wall. That's the level of trust and relationships that you want to get to and build with those in your facility, so they can rely on you as well as you can rely on them. But if it was always just emails back and forth, that would have never occurred.
That's a great call out, and I love that example, because that shows that the friendship element of a good working relationship is super, super important. If your buddy asks you, hey, can you help me move this weekend? You don't bat an eye, you go and do. And I think that's, to your point, Jill, earlier, during the pandemic and during the time where this is separation, we tried to patchwork relationships with, digital solutions. But I know as an IP, I found there's no substitute for just saying, hey, I'm going to take my manager from the fourth floor and we're going to do EOC rounds together today. And I'm not going to be super stringent. We're going to talk about things. We're going to educate in real time. And it doesn't always have to be a hard line audit for regulatory compliance. Sometimes it can be, we're working together as a team and working together today. Now, Aaron, I want to go back to one of the skills that you mentioned, and one of the elements of your, LinkedIn page that caught our attention and that we really enjoyed was the visual aspect. And when we're presenting information, it can be challenging to make sure it's visually engaging and it's connecting to work that people care about. So can you provide us some insights and feedback on how we make presentations to leadership, visually appealing?
So one of the things for me, and I'm a bit of a OCD perfectionist with this, is I always want my slides to look the best. I don't like it to look
I like that.
terrible. I want things to look incredibly presentable. I want things that are clean, simple, maybe some charts, some infographics, emphasizing your trends of like raw numbers, and absolutely 100% avoid tons and tons of text. Don't use overly complex graphs. If you're using like super complex graphs, you're going to have to explain it. And if you have to explain all of this to leadership, they're already going to zone out. You have to get in there quick. If anybody's ever watched like Shark Tank, you really do have 30 seconds to get the idea, the concept, and all of that out very quickly so you can start making headway in the direction that you're going. So when it comes to slides, probably my biggest pet peeve is 1990s clip art, fuzzy pictures, text that is inconsistent, keeping things way more detailed than they need to be. So it's very clean. It needs to be clean. It needs to be direct, and it needs to get to the point.
I think that's so important what you said about you have 30 seconds, because even if you have 30 seconds, a minute to give your talk at a meeting, or you have 30 seconds on the nursing unit to give your spiel to a nurse, no matter what we as IPs are doing, I feel like we have about a 30-second attention span of the person that we're talking to. And I say this all the time to people. I'm like, you have to give your education or whatever you're doing in like little bite-sized pieces, because the attention span of people it's so small. It's like, it's like a child. So you have to make sure that you're concise. You are saying it in a way that people are going to understand what you're saying and your point up front in the very beginning. Because if you try to talk about, I don't know, like CETA rates are going up for 20 minutes and you don't get to the point until minute 18, you lost people at minute 2. So it doesn't matter how many slides you have or how great your slides are, you still only have like that kind of small time frame to get your point across, no matter what your audience is, what meeting you're in. So that's such a good point all around.
One of the ways that I justified asking for an additional FTE for an infection preventionist was I started the conversation with, I can save you $132,000 in 1 year right now. All I need is 80.
I think everybody would like to learn more about this, Aaron, how you concisely presented this to leadership and it worked.
So when you look at the cost of a CLAPC, and if your facility is having issues with CLAPCs and you have, let's say you have 6 of them, and you estimate the cost on about $22,000 for a case of CLAPC. So let's say that you had 6, or let's say you had 12 and you want to cut that down by 50%. So you're going to cut out 6. If you need the additional staff so you can come up with a plan on how to address that, and you are successful, you would effectively have erased that cost that the facility is going to incur by offsetting it with an FTE. So you have an additional person there doing the work. Now, if you are coming it from a perspective of, if we don't fix this, we're going to double this again or have even more, that cost is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you are coming at it from the angle and you say, I can save you $132,000 in a year if I have an FTE. So you want something that's attention grabbing. You want something that immediately will engage the monetary value of infection control. I really focus with leadership that the infection prevention and control department is your insurance policy.
That's really great, Aaron. I think we're all looking at more ways to justify our asks, especially after the staffing calculator came out last year. I know some people were probably successful and some maybe weren't in using the staffing calculator, but using the numbers behind some of that, I think is a great idea. And you're right. Again, looking at your target audience and making sure that you're appealing to what appeals to them. And if you're looking to your executive leadership or higher leadership, money talks to them. They want to save on money. They want to save on infections because that's what gets you higher in some of these rankings and scoring platforms. So great advice.
I like the way you frame that too, because instead of saying, if you don't do this, it's going to cost you $1 million. You said, by doing A, I can save you this amount of money. And it really does frame it in a really neat way. I told you guys I was traveling this week, and on the flight out, the flight attendant said, did anybody drop this? Did anybody lose this? And everybody, of course, looks up because we don't want to lose anything. And it was the safety packet for her demonstration. And then so she went right into that demonstration, but she had everybody's attention on the plane because she had a great hook. She had a great way to set the stage for the information that she was going to share. And I think we can take a little bit of that and apply it to our presentations with leadership, is getting a good, solid hook for our audience.
Yes, I completely agree. It's a little bit of showmanship whenever you are going to present at that level. If you don't have and bring some sort of pizzazz with it that is really attention grabbing, it's not going to work, and it generally will fall flat. Because if you think about it, you're going to have a lot of competition for the funds that you're looking for with other people in the facility. Whether it's radiology looking for a new radiologist or new equipment. If you're coming in and you don't have anything and it's, we need to make sure that we're looking at this and we need this because it's going to go bad, and you don't have it tied to something, especially the direction the facility is going. This is why I really like to focus on the mission and vision of a facility whenever you're doing this, because it's hard to argue with whenever you are tying what you are trying to do to that.
So, Aaron, here's a big question, and I know a lot of IPs probably ask this of their leaders. How do you learn to have that pizzazz or just to be a good public speaker in general? Some people it comes very natural to. Some people are scared to death to speak in front of even a small group like their IPC committees. And some people would rather die than go up on a stage at a conference. But how do you get that, just the confidence to speak in front of small, large groups, or even just to have the confidence to get in front of the exec team and get them to believe in what you're saying?
That's a
big
really
question.
So I don't know how it comes off for me, but I am pretty confident in speaking in front of anybody. I've been doing it for years. Top military leadership, VA leadership, no issues for me. But if we would have had this conversation about 20, 25 years ago, it would have been totally different. So one of the things that I did, and it has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with infection control, but what really helped me was I auditioned for a stage play. I told myself, I am not good at speaking in front of people. I get nervous. I start to get all shaky on the inside. I lose track of what I'm saying. I forget to focus. I don't know where I'm looking. How can I fix this? So I was like, well, if I do a stage play, that will force me to do this. So that's exactly what I did.
Had you ever acted before, or was this literally just to get
never.
that? Wow, that's incredible.
I would have never in a million years ever have done this. But I was at a point to where either I learned and taught myself how to do this, or I was going to fall. And I did not want to do that. So I did a couple stage plays, and it built and I developed that confidence to move forward. Now, for everybody else who struggles with it, what I suggest to people is to practice until you know everything that you are going to talk about inside and out. You could say it backwards. You could give a 30-second elevator pitch to it. You could give a hour-long talk on it, or even a 5-hour talk. The more you know about it, the more comfortable you can be. And then you just have to worry about tweaking and addressing the nerves that you might have. And generally, I like to talk about a practice. I was asked recently by somebody out interviewing, their feedback that they were looking for is how can they get better at interviews? And I suggested doing, I don't know where I heard this method from, but it was record yourself talking and then just listen to it. Don't watch it. Then watch it, but don't listen to it. And then watch it and listen to it at the same time. And critique yourself and see where you can make improvements on it. And the more and more you do it, the better and better you become. And you start to realize that they're just people. Everybody's just people. They're there to do the same job as you.
So, Aaron, I think that's a perfect crystallization of this conversation. I think that takeaway for IPs and orientation to get up, to go and do, and then to practice it. Put yourself out there. I love that example of, signing up for a play to get better at public speaking. So I want to thank you for your expertise and all the insights that you've shared today. I'm super excited to, one, go back and, just like you said, listen to this and get all of these great nuggets that you shared with us. And we're really grateful you came on. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure speaking with you both, Garrett and Joe.
Yeah, thanks so much, Aaron. This was a lot of fun, and can't wait to see more of what you're doing on LinkedIn and talk to you again.
Sounds wonderful.
I think the most exciting part of that interview there, Jill, was all of the creative ways that Aaron is incorporating his background and his experience as an IP into those leadership reports. I know for myself and for any IP, it can be very intimidating to report to executive leadership and then know how to do it in a way that you're not going to fall flat on your face. So I really like that he, even from signing up for a local play to using the creative diagrams and graphics and presentations, I think we can all benefit from that approach when reporting to leadership.
That was incredible to me that he said he signed up for a local play. I thought maybe that was something that he just enjoyed to do. And no, he just wanted to become a better speaker. I think that's something we all try to figure out how to do, because no matter what your role is in infection prevention, you will be speaking in front of a group, whether it's a small Zoom meeting, an in-person meeting, or whether your goal is to speak at the national conference. And so I thought that was just really incredible. And the conversation about kind of knowing your audience and tailoring your reports to who you're talking to, that's really important in our field too, because you could be talking to the executive team and knowing what they're looking for compared to if you're giving the same data presentation to just your own team, that those two reports could look very different. And we do that all the time. And we're trying to make sure that if you're presenting to your non-clinical executive team, how can you tailor that report to where they don't kind of eyes glaze over and stop listening, but turn it into a money thing? Like how much money could we save if we saved you 4 CLABSIs next year? So, thinking about things that way is really cool. So a great episode, great things to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And remember, infection stops where information starts.
Thanks for tuning in to the Transmission Control Podcast, where infection stops because information starts. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and share this episode with your team. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and keep transmission under control.